welcome to the Dread Podcast, where we will be doing a segment called Under the Knife today, where we will be discussing and dissecting Dillon Brown, filmmaker, director, and actor. We'd like to offer you a huge welcome, Dillon. How are you today?
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm great. It's the morning over here on a Sunday, and had a nice weekend off from work, so it's nice to come on and talk some bloody fun. So I'm ready.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing that we definitely are going to get into today is your work on your new film, A Man in the Woods with an Axe, which I know there is a lot of buzz and excitement on social media about right now. But we also just want to talk about other things that you've done and get to know you a little bit as well today. So, before we get into that, would you like to talk about any of your previous works? I know something that I've really enjoyed is your Tahoe Joe series.
Yeah, I mean that's really like the one that I think kind of kickstarted this whole thing. Um, it was uh, it was always like a dream of mine to play around in the world of Bigfoot. And it's funny because I'm not really like a true Bigfoot fanatic or believer. It's like I'm not out there looking for him for real or anything like that. But I've just always liked Bigfoot movies, and I always felt like when they were good, they're so fun, and it's this really cool creature and such a neat cryptid. And so yeah, I decided to take one on, and it was this little $800 experiment. That was really how much we made the first movie for. It was kind of one of those let's just try it, and we don't know if it's even going to work. Um, and then it like took off, and it took off so much that we ended up doing a part two and a part three out of it. So yeah, I'd say Tahoe Joe's definitely the stuff that most people always associate myself and my co-director and fellow horror dads member Michael Rock with. We're always probably going to be the Bigfoot guys, no matter what else we make. Um, but yeah, Tahoe Joe, so much fun. Then I went and did a like a punk slasher thing called The Summer We Died, and it's very much kind of filmed like. An 80-minute music video with this slasher vibe, and I kind of have some giallo vibes in there, and I've got a lot of kind of skate culture, and just wanted to make a slasher movie that would take people back to like what it was like being a kid, and pushing the boundaries of what you could get away with as a young person. um, and then most recently, I released Primal Darkness. That's a found original, and that was a ton of fun. That was probably like my favorite project to go tackle because it was something I'd wanted to do for years and years and years. And I mean, I got to make a horror movie with a caveman or a Neanderthal as the bad guy. So like, so much fun.
And that's one thing that I really like is as indie filmmakers are really diving into found footage. Now, admittedly, many years ago, that wasn't my favorite subgenre. But what I'm finding an appreciation and a love for with found footage is not only does it keep the production value low for you guys, but it really gives you an ability to go back to what I love the most and practical effects and practical makeup, which really has made me do a deep dive into found footage. So, what do you think are some of the challenges when you're doing that, when you're trying to make a film and keep the budget so low?
Yeah, it's like everything. The less money you have, the less people you can bring on board to help. So it really becomes one of those things where you say, where do I want to allocate my funds? In the way that it makes the most sense for the production. So if it's a movie that's going to need, effects heavy sequences, then we need to make sure whatever money we have goes to that. But that also means I'm going to have more on my plate as far as acting as, probably acting in the movie and then working on the marketing, editing it myself, doing the sound work myself. Like it's just kind of picture by picture. And it's just really where you say, where's the money going to fit best to kind of make my vision come to life. One of the things that's so funny, and I've been championing this really hard, um, is that found footage movies look, it's the Picasso effect. I think people look at it and they go, you know, they look at a Picasso and it's like, oh, well, my 3-year-old could draw that. Well, no, they can't, right? They can make something that looks messy, and in your mind, your eyes are saying it looks the same because the proportions are out of, you know, whack or whatever. But it's the same with found footage, where I hear all the time, like anybody can grab a phone or a camera and go run around in the woods and make a found footage movie. And as true as that is, because you know things like YouTube exist where you can do that and upload anything you want now, and I think that's great, where you were bringing up with practical effects, trying to film a found footage movie with practical effects is actually an unbelievably hard thing to do, because you have to have a reason why the camera is positioned where it is, or why it's running, or who's got the camera. Whereas in a traditional narrative, if you need an effect shot, you can just set the camera up wherever you need it and get whatever shots you need to make the effect work. In found footage, if you've got a character with the camera and that camera is the only window into that story, and they're running through the woods, and now you have some big puppet, you know, creature, or like a blood effect where you've got to pump and you got to pump blood out everywhere, you have to figure out how you're going to hide all that while the person's running around and swinging a camera around. And then, you know, why would they stop in that exact perfect place to frame it just perfectly so you can see the effect? And so you have to explain all those things and figure out how to navigate that. And it actually becomes very, very, um, you know, challenging logistically to, you know, overcome those hurdles. And I think that's why a lot of found footage movies will maybe start out with a really grandiose, you know, idea, or they've got all these big effect shots that they want to have, and then you kind of get like what happened in Blair Witch, where a lot of that stuff goes away and they end up taking the more simple route, because you start realizing it doesn't make sense for the camera to be, you know, positioned here to show that. So um I caution a lot of people who want to jump into found footage because it's quote easy. And I just like to put the warning out there that whereas absolutely it is the best way to break in, but it will give you some challenges that traditional narrative will not. And so um practice before you try and jump into an expensive one, because it can be an expensive mistake if you don't get it right.
Well, yeah, and that's definitely something I can appreciate. Like when I'm sitting here and I do a movie review. So say I do something on my platform, when I think of indie, I think of the challenges that you have because, like you said, you're the director, you're the producer, you may be doing the effects, you're an actor. Like all those challenges go into that, and I think that's something that okay. Say there's a film that came out and it has a $25 million budget. I'm gonna eviscerate that movie because they had everything available to them at their resources. But then I look at something and I look at an indie film and I'm smiling because of what they were able to accomplish during the making of that film. And I think that makes it more endearing to fans. And I think that's why, for so many horror fans, not only seeing a new horror film release every week now, but seeing indie actually break into the theaters, which is huge for the genre. But that's one thing I wanted to ask you. What do you think is your biggest challenge in filmmaking?
I think it's, you hit the nail on the head with, you know, a new release every week. I think the biggest challenge, honestly, is staying relevant and being seen. It's like you can be working on something new and trying to push it out there, and it might have a couple of videos that people do on it, and it gets a write up on Dread Central or Bloody Disgusting or something, and you're there in the spotlight for a bit, but in 2 days, everybody's forgotten about it because a trailer for something else has dropped, and now that's the new one that everybody's focusing on. And you just get buried in content. And so I think really the true challenge is in the post side of all of this, is like, how do you remain visible in a sea of constant, you know, content coming out. Now from like a technical standpoint, as far as like the filming side, um, I think the biggest challenge, it's always finding the right people to make your vision come to life. I've got so many amazing friends and people I've worked with over and over and over in a lot of my movies because we work so well together. Um, but there are times when I can't go cast a friend in a role because I just know that they're not going to give me what I need out of that. Like, I'm not dealing with a lot of seasoned actors who have been trained in acting and they've done this their whole career. Many times I'm dealing with people who this is their first or maybe second feature, or maybe all they've ever done is some live theater. So my director hat has to be on really tight as far as trying to pull performances out of people. Um, but a lot of times, the people I have at my disposal, they may not fit the role that I need. So then I'm looking for somebody in outsourcing, and then that's a new person I've got to work with, and that's always a challenge too when you bring in somebody new. Um, and we do things so different than most production companies. Us over here at Horror Dads, we're shooting movies from inception to like streaming within like a 4 month window. I mean, we're like hitting stuff in like record time, and that means that when we're filming, I mean, we're filming fast. It's like one or two takes, boom, onto the next scene. Um, Really challenging everybody to move, move, move. Like, we've got to get going. And a lot of it's because, yeah, we don't have the money or the time or the resources. So we may have a location for one day and I've got to shoot 8 scenes. Like, we've got to move. And so there's a lot of times where actors are used to those shoots that might take 2, 3 weeks that they're on set and they can kind of slowly do their stuff. On our stuff, it's like, oh, you're coming in and we're doing 10 hours and we're going, and we're getting all your stuff knocked out, in one day. Um, and some of them love it. I think they love the rat race. And then there's others that I think are like, yeah, I'm not working with those guys again. That's way too crazy. But we've weeded those people out, I think, pretty good. And now we've got our core group that always seems to be ready for the next one.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was one question I wanted to kind of bring up as um obviously while I was getting ready for this interview, I looked up Horror Nerd Productions, Horror Dads Productions, and one thing that I really liked is especially about indie is a lot of fans are now becoming directors, people who love the genre. So that way I think we have a better connection with people who make that film. But one thing that I thought was truly unique is it really shows you guys as like a hey, you go and work your 9 to 5, you go have a job like everyday men, and then you go out and you're making films. So do you want to talk about your production company and a little bit about Horror Nerd and Horror Dads Productions?
Yeah, absolutely. So Horror Nerd is just my personal brand here in Reno, where I'm based. Um, Horror Dads is our like collective that we've created. Obviously, we're all dads. We all kind of came together because filmmaking was like a little like a form of therapy for us almost. It was like this way to take all those stresses of dad life and work life and all those things that we've got to do day in and day out, and then we can say, okay, I'm gonna spend Saturday making some art with my buddies. And I'm gonna go out into the woods and we're gonna get a monster costume and we're just gonna go have fun, right? Um, and so Horror Dads kind of was created that way because I had put out a film, was very open with doing it while working, a career. I work for the United States Army and Department of Defense as a root cause analyst. So I'm out on a military base 40 to 50 hours a week. And so I just had the weekends to do filmmaking stuff. And I was noticing that there were other guys out there that were in the same boat. And we started chatting. Excuse me. They were asking me, how did you find a balance? Like, how did you find a way to do the work life, the family life, and then still go out and make your art? And I just told him it was a big challenge. I had to really look deep within myself. Can I even balance this? Is it worth it? Uh, Sorry, I got a catch in my throat. Um, but I was learning that these guys were kind of leaning on me, like, you did it, I want to do it. Can you give me any insight into how you pulled this off? So I started talking to Josh Brucker for a while about this Mothman movie that he wanted to do, and we were chatting back and forth, and he said, I'm going to go for it. He's like, I saw what you did with your first, two movies that you've put out, and you've made it seem like it's really possible. So I'm going to go for it. And I was like, dude, I'm in your corner. Like, you need anything, message me. I'll tell you everything I did wrong on my first stuff, so you don't do that. And then we had another guy, Hunter Nino, and he was asking me some stuff. And then I found out Hunter and Josh weren't that far from each other over there by Illinois. And I told Hunter, hey, I think Josh is going to need a PA. You should get with him. And so Josh and Hunter linked up. They worked on the movie together. Well, now all of a sudden, now there's three of us that are talking all the time. Then I meet Mike Rock, who I started doing all the Tahoe Joe stuff with, and we just hit it off like best buddies. And now there's a fourth guy. And then I got this guy from Texas in my DMs, and he's asking us how we got started. So then here comes Dustin Tamplin. And then we meet a podcaster named Matt who joins. And then it's just like we kept meeting more and more people. And we all just kind of had the same story. We all love film. We all wanted to do it. We just never really had the opportunity to get into it until we did it ourselves. And we basically were saying, none of us are quitting our day jobs. We're all going to be dads and family men and have our 9 to 5s. But we're here for each other, and we're going to use this as kind of a way to say, I'm here for you. You be here for me. If one of us makes it big, then we all go and work on the next big project together, and if none of us make it big, then you know what? We still came out of it as a giant group of friends. And it's been so good. It's been so good for my mental health, and all those guys have shared the same thing. And I really do encourage people to just get with your friends and make art. It is so worth it.
You know what? That's awesome to hear, and that's one thing I think is I've found out over the last few years. I've been a horror lover since I can remember, but the community itself is so welcoming. And when you said something earlier about, and just kind of going back to that about staying relevant and staying seen and being noticed, I think that's what's been great about the horror community is, speaking with indie directors, you guys are so open, so welcoming, so uh, able to talk about your craft and everything when so many other people won't give you that access. And you know, for me and for many other people that I know of my mutuals, that means a lot to us because then we get to share that, and it spreads like wildfire. And that's something that, definitely goes a long way for us when we want to have accessibility and everything like that. So we truly do appreciate that. Now, shifting back to you, so what makes you choose creature features and slashers for your films?
I just grew up watching them. Like, you can see the dinosaur stuff behind me there, and I'm a massive Jurassic Park fan. Like, that was the movie that had me glued to the seat. I was 7 years old when my parents took me to see it in the theater, and that was the one that flipped a switch in my mind. That was just like, I have to know how they did this. This is blowing my mind right now. I mean, I was convinced it was real. And so I think, loving dinosaurs is kind of an easy transition to loving monsters, just because they go pretty much hand in hand, in the film world. And uh and then slashers, I just felt like I had like a slasher for every stage of my life. There was like a slasher that kind of um you know felt relevant to like that point in my life. It's like I had Scream when I was um going through like adolescence, and then when I was going through college. I was looking back on a lot of the 80s movies, and then I was of that age in my early 20s going on camping trips out in the woods. So then I'm watching all these movies about 20 somethings, and I just felt like slasher movies kind of had this progression of like whatever I was going through, I could find a slasher that kind of related to like what was going on, um either historically or socially, or even in my own personal life. There was always like some kind of a slasher movie that I could relate to, like one of the main characters. And they're just fun. I just think slasher movies are Creature features are my favorite because I love monsters, but I think slashers are my favorite as far as like an overall subgenre, just because they're the most fun to me. I think they have the silliest entries, and then some of the scariest entries, and some really serious ones, and then some really really goofy over the top ones. They blend with other subgenres really well. Like I was such a fan of Hard Eyes, because I just was like, the fact that they were able to take this brutal slasher but have this almost Hallmark style romance and then also comedy. I was just like, well, this is such a genius thing. Um, and so I think that because I love them so much, I was like, well, I want to go make those, because if they're that much fun to watch, they got to be a lot of fun to make. And spoiler alert, they are a lot of fun to make.
That's awesome. I couldn't agree with you more with Hard Eyes. That opening scene and how hard they leaned into the absurdity of that opening scene, and then you get that first kill and you're like, okay, here we go. This is something truly special. So that's awesome to hear. I love to hear that. I'm a massive fan of creature features and slashers, so you already got me on a board as a fan. So let's discuss your newest film that you're working on, A Man in the Woods with an Axe. Let us know some stuff about it.
Well, it is so it's fully done. It We started production in May, and I wrapped a couple of weeks ago. So it was a fast one. It's actually already been signed to distribution. I just haven't got the go ahead to like make that announcement yet, but it is signed. It's going to be out there. It's going to go worldwide streaming like all the other stuff. We just still got all the logistics of that to deal with. But as far as the film itself, it is truly my love letter to 80 slashers and anything woods set slasher. So like everything from The Burning to Friday the 13th to The Final Terror to Until Dawn, like all those movies are really kind of referenced in a way in this one, because I love those movies so much. And having said that, I didn't want to do something that would just be an homage to those. I wanted to do something that would do that, but then also have a very, very unique spin on it. So about the halfway point of the movie, um, my very, very straightforward title of A Man in the Woods with an Axe becomes a bait and switch, and it will go way in a different direction than I think anybody's expecting. And I'm really excited about that, because it's going to be one of those movies that I think um, will be described as very unexpected. I just don't think anybody's going to have any idea from how it starts that by the time it ends, they're going to be going, "How the hell did we get here?" And I think it's going to be a fun roller coaster ride, because this thing has everything I love about monster movies and slasher movies and sci-fi movies, like all those things that got me hooked as a fan of just horror in general and all the subgenres that can be in it. I have found a way to sink a lot of subgenre into this story. But it's been so fun to play it off with this very, very generic, straightforward title. Because when I was describing movies like Until Dawn and all these, I was watching one that Joe Bob Briggs had done one of their last drive-in shows on, and I think it was called "Don't Go In" or "Stay Out of the Woods" or "Don't Go in the Woods" or something like that. "Stay Out of the Woods," I think. And I had never seen it before, so I was talking to somebody at work about it, and I couldn't remember the title. And I remember them asking me, "Well, what's it about?" And I jokingly said, It's just one of those movies about a man in the woods with an axe." And I was joking about that. And then I started thinking about that description, and I was like, that's like every one of those movies I could describe. And so that's actually where the idea for the title came for this one, was let's just pick something really straightforward. But then when people are 40 minutes or so into this movie, they're going to be like, this is everything but a man in the woods with an axe. So without saying a whole lot more, that's pretty much the gist of this one.
That's awesome because when I saw the poster for it or the poster art for it, one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies is Friday the 13th Part 2. And I see the Baghead and Baghead Jason and everything, and okay, sign me up. He has the baguette, he has the axe, and I love just where you got the inspiration for that name because yeah, when you can't think of a title for a horror movie, that is the easiest way is just give it a quick synopsis and that's the title. So that's awesome. I'll definitely look forward to the references in that, the Easter eggs, because I am a massive fan of 80s slashers. Okay, so before we get you out of here, I was hoping to do a little rapid fire with you. I got a couple random questions.
Let's do it.
All right. So, what is your favorite movie?
Jurassic Park, hands down.
Absolutely, that's awesome. All right. So outside of horror, what would you say is your favorite genre of movies?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's so funny. I tend to really love rom coms. It's the most opposite thing for me, but uh, stuff like Overboard with Kurt Russell, and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, like those movies, my mom loved, and I loved watching those with her, and so I guess I've always been kind of taken by those. I've always thought they were cute and fun, and just turn your brain off and enjoy them.
All right, and final question for you. If you had a particular license that you had a chance to direct, which one would you pick?
It's so funny because you would think I would say Jurassic Park just because, but I think that would almost be hard as a fan to be like working on it. So I would say if I could somehow get a chance to do a Predator movie, like sign me up. I would do, and what I would do is I would take Predator back to the prehistoric age, and I would do an entire movie of predators hunting dinosaurs. So that's what I would do.
That's awesome. Dylan, it was absolutely awesome having you on. Before we get off, where can we find you? Where can we find all your work?
Yeah, we're so all of our movies are on Tubi or Amazon Prime, Found TV, Fandango at home. We've got stuff spread all over the place. And to find them, you can go to horrordadsproductions.com, dads with a Z. So horrordadsproductions.com has links to all of our stuff and where it's streaming. And then, of course, you can find us on social media. I've got my Horror Nerd Productions Instagram and Facebook pages, and then my personal Facebook page. You can just search my name. It's a public profile, so people can just hit the follow button. And then we have a Horror Dads Productions Facebook page and Instagram as well, plus a Horror Dads and Horror Nerd Productions YouTube channels. So we're all over.
Fantastic. And look, I know, like many others, we are excited for your new film. I cannot wait to watch, support, and review it. And Dylan, thank you for being on and being a guest with us today.
Hey, thank you so much, Matthew. I had a great time.
All right.